also need to have a relationship with these kind of people. They're not. I remember one time I heard somebody call somebody that worked for them an underling, and I thought, an underling, what the heck is that? You know, there are no underlings. We are a team. We all work together. We're side by side in this. We're not. I'm not above and or below anyone. We are together. Those working relationships need to be constant, and they have to be cultivated. You know, you can't just expect them to happen. And what happens is you guys elect us to do things, and over time we forget. Well, you need to remind us that's going on. That's kind of one of the things that's happening now. We're being reminded that it's important that we listen to the people that put us in office. You know, we're not dictators. I will say this. They have the power to do good. Do good. They have the power to encourage. They have the power to give raises and do those things that benefit the people that work with them. They have that power. Use that power, period, and watch people grow. You'll have a strong force when you do that, period. So you did tell me to stop, right? 3 seconds. Yeah. I love you.
Mr. Winkle, let me repeat the question for the audience. Is there a need to adjust the agreements, coordination, and working relationships between the county and local municipal governments and staffs, including and not limited to the common services each provide? Please explain.
One of the first cliches that I learned growing up was that too many cooks spoil the broth. And when you go into a gourmet kitchen, they have very specialized cooks who work over just a single frying pan or cooking pan or pot of broth in order to get it just right. You pay the price for that. But the fact that we have shared responsibilities between the different administrators for the different municipalities, including the county, creates the kind of conflict that does not allow you to have anything other than mediocre. Now, we are generally, my wife and I are generally very pleased with the PSA Center. We think that the services offered there and the price that's offered there for our family is fantastic. And we are horribly disappointed in our community park, which still, after 2.5 years, does not have screening in the picnic pavilion. And as I mentioned earlier, you cannot get access to the bathrooms except by appointment with the county. That occurs because the board responsibility for the PSA is not responsive to the needs in District 2. It's taken more than 3 months just to get the pavilion painted, and it was sprayed. And so it was a matter of going days and weeks without attention. And so when we start looking at how do you get things done, that's the way things need to be structured. They need to be structured so that we don't waste any money, and so we get things done efficiently, and they're in the benefit of the citizens of the county, whether they live in a city or they live unincorporated. And so are changes necessary? Yes. What are they? I don't know. I don't even know how they work at this point because they are so secretive. There's an example. Mr. Martin said that it's always been that way about how the meetings do not have give and take. There's someone sitting in this room, and I read her 2-page point and counterpoint dialogue in county commission board minutes that she had with 4 of the 5 commissioners one night about an issue that she was concerned about. She's sitting in this room right now, and I read that, and it was 10 years ago, so it's not been always. We can do better. and we have to do better.
Ms. Murray, you have the first chance at this question. Let me read it. Several states have added the teaching of financial literacy to their state graduation requirements. Please briefly explain financial literacy and then tell us if you would be interested in sponsoring and helping initiate state actions to include financial literacy as a state graduation requirement.
I mean, my understanding of financial literacy is your ability to handle your finances, and I think we can all improve on that for sure. I did not receive that in high school outside of my parents, and I'm still paying on student loans to this day. So I do think it's an important thing. I do think it's an important conversation. I'm not sure about making it a state graduation requirement, because again, I do believe it's the responsibility of a parent to prepare their child to enter into the world. I wholeheartedly believe that. Now, I do think that they can make it an option, where we make sure that students have accessibility to areas where they can improve on their financial literacy. I definitely think that that's important, that students enter into the world knowing what debt is, what healthy debt is, what unhealthy debt is, what credit cards will do, and how they'll come after you in college. I do think all that is important, how they learn how to buy a car and how to buy a house. I think all of those things, file their taxes, write a check. I mean, that's a completely lost art. I took an accounting class when I was in high school, and I still remember the things I learned in that classroom. And so I do think it's important. I'm not sure about making it a state graduation requirement. I would have to know more about what exactly they mean with that. But I do think financial literacy is a huge value. And I think when you look at our world, the amount of people who are in staggering debt explains that we raised up an entire generation that did not have financial literacy. And so, yes, I do think it's important. And I would be curious to know more about what would all be included in that. But I would definitely be interested in pushing that forward. Yeah, for sure.
Mr. Spears, you okay, or should I read the question?
Yes, ma'am. I am okay. So my answer to this is yes. So financial literacy to me is exactly that. Having these kids learn how to open a bank account, how to understand what interest rates are, what compounding interest is, and what overdrafting is, and all of those things along that line, how to open accounts, balances, interest rates. And I agree that it should be the parent's responsibility to teach those skills. But unfortunately, as Mr. Winkle pointed out earlier, we've got areas of the county where folks don't even have running water. There are kids that don't have parents that have been trained properly in how to do that. So I think it is imperative on the schools to be able to graduate children that have financial literacy. And I would be behind a state movement at the state level school board to make financial literacy be part of our curriculum. I've talked to several folks who have mentioned just that, that they have, come out of high school and not known how to open a bank account and how to balance a bank account and how those things work. And they've gotten into big problems with things like payday loans and all these kind of things because they didn't understand how to manage that money properly from the get-go. One of the things that's interesting about Kings Bay, all the Navy bases that I've been across the country, every other Navy base that I've been at, when you come out of the gate, it is used car dealership, liquor store, bar room, used car dealership, liquor store, bar room. And back in the day when I was coming up, all these ads at the dealerships was like, "We finance E1 and up." Right? So these are these guys and girls that are just out of high school and don't have that financial literacy. They're making $20,000 a year and they finance a car for $50,000. You know what I mean? And being able to graduate these kids with financial literacy is imperative. Luckily, the military has had the foresight to end that practice and make it, against the law for military folks to be the targets of these predatory lending practices. So that has decreased a lot from a regulatory level. But I think if we can have our kids understand what those things are by the time they leave high school, I think there's nothing but a benefit to that.
Mr. Winkle, you get first crack at the sixth question. As a county commissioner with the responsibility of providing a system of local government services designed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of area citizens, what one part of county government management and staff functions would you prioritize for improvement? Please explain.
Interestingly enough, I had an early acquaintance problem in Camden County with an area that has since improved dramatically. I went to the landfill one day to deposit my debris from construction we were doing on our home, and the landfill had been shut down by the state. Most of you don't even know that that occurred. It occurred over a 4-day period because the state found that our county landfill was in violation of state law. The Environmental Protection Division shut it down. The county commission was very distressed, went out and hired a real expert, and that real expert came in and started fixing things. And Mr. Barkley has made a big difference in Camden County at something as commonplace and unexotic as our landfill. The reason why that's important is that we're all depending on that landfill to be there and to work. It helps keep our costs down because other governments are supplementing the cost of that. Those governments deposit their trash in Camden County and pay a little higher fee than we pay to dump in our own landfill. And so there's a lesson to be learned from that. What we realize is that this idea of we've always done it that way, or it's structured a certain way and that's the best we can do, that's almost never true. So if I take a look at E911, that's a great example for me, because since we've lived in Camden County, we've had to use E911 3 times. One for an auto accident that was serious. One because I had a ruptured gallbladder one night at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then another time it had to do with a political issue when a former elected official got into trouble with the law and he lived in my subdivision. And it wasn't this man who also owns a property in my subdivision. I would have been transparent. Yes. So my point is that we need to always be looking at the services that the county is required under the law or they take upon themselves to provide to the public. And without a constant review and kind of like a little dissatisfaction concern about can they be better, they will never get better. And so I would take a look carefully, just like I have at Spaceport, at everything that pertains to each of the things we're responsible for and try to analyze them in the proper way.
Mr. Turner, let me reread the question for the audience. Bear with me, I'm trying to figure out my wife's signals from the back of the room. As a county commissioner with the responsibility of providing a system of local government services designed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of area citizens, what one part of county government management and staff functions would you prioritize for improvement? Please explain.
By the way, she gave you a thumbs up. Is what she did. I didn't know if you saw it or not. Attaboy. I serve on the Citizens Board for our local district attorney. That's a new board where he's actually evaluating law enforcement and the shootings that take place. They've got the cameras on their body, and there are 3 of us, maybe 4 now, but there are different people within the community that he trusts, that he thinks has a pulse on our community and knows a lot about you guys. I don't know if that's true or not. I can't really say it is, but I do serve on that board. 2 weeks ago, we watched a shooting that happened in Kingsland. I don't know if you've ever seen anybody really get shot, but it is tragic to me. This guy had a knife. He was pulling it down and getting ready to stab this young lady, and the officer had to shoot him. Well, we came to the conclusion that it was a clean shoot. I don't know how you can do that because someone still died, but it was horrible, and it made me realize what these officers really go through. I mean, to think that he had to shoot somebody, and he was devastated afterwards. I mean, you could hear him. He was devastated because he had to do that. Law enforcement, that's a big issue. Steve Curtis is here, who's my pastor. He's the chaplain for the sheriff's department. They need it because they're experiencing a lot of stuff that we don't. People don't like them. They nail them in different ways. They criticize them, and they're constantly afraid that they could go to jail themselves. So that's where I would put my money. That's where I would look. I would try to help the sheriff's department. Extremely important, especially for those particular officers that are patrolling our area. Safety, wow. I got a few minutes. Do I have a minute? Just got back from Gainesville. I took my wife. I have a handicapped wife, by the way, and once every 3 months, have to take her to Gainesville. And while we were there, our daughter came up to our room to see us. And on the way up, on the elevator, she got somebody that got in the elevator with her and exposed himself to her. She was devastated. She didn't know what to do. She came running into the room. Naturally, I didn't have anything to protect her other than locking the door and shutting it. But not one police officer came up there. Not one came there. That's what they're supposed to do. They are there to protect and serve all of us. So to me, that is a huge area that we need to look at and constantly work on. The way to do it is, like I said, the multiplier effect. Get the sheriff's department to buy local so the taxes will stay here and maybe help him to get what he needs.
Mr. Spears, you have the first chance at this question. What can the Camden County school system do to better serve high school students who do not have the desire to get a college education, but who still need to be prepared for a high-paying career? And if you're approving of this, how would you lead in this action?
Wow. So I would say already that this is something that the Camden County school system is really good at. We've got an exceptional, technical program for folks that want to go into trades other than, kids that have designs other than to go to college. We have a wonderful agriculture program. We have wonderful, masonry and auto tech and welding and all those types of things. And we've seen tremendous results from those things. We talked about that a little bit earlier. So could they be funded better? Yeah, absolutely. The East Blast, go back to that again, but the East Blast this time, the focus of that is going to be on creation of a CTAE facility that will go exactly towards these needs. We've got a program in place that we should be extremely proud of, and it's it's really successful. And it's one of these things again. I feel like I'm getting these questions about how do we improve on something that's really good already. I think we let these folks that are in those roles now that are experts at it, we let them run with it, and we provide them with every tool and every piece of equipment and all the funding that they need to do what their jobs are, and we let them run with it. I would lead this action by doing exactly that. I would advocate for funding to continue in those areas to give them all those resources and those tools to do exactly that. Straightforward.
Ms. Murray, are you okay, or
Yes,
shall
ma'am,
I
I'm
read
great.
the question?
I'm awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, same thing. I do. I mean, I spoke to this a little bit earlier. I do think we have a fantastic program in place already that serves these needs. I think the thing that could be improved and how I would lead is simply by celebrating it and allowing it to be okay. I think I graduated, in 2002, and I got a soccer scholarship to go play college soccer, and it was absolutely celebrated. I was marched in front of the newspaper, and I was marched in front of the school, and I got to sign my scholarship, and it was this big celebratory thing. And then on scholarship night, you're paraded in front of everybody, and you don't see that for trade jobs. And so that is one area where I do think it can be improved. I mean, a man that I was talking to earlier, he has countless state championships in construction and the things that he's a part of, and I didn't even know about it. And I'm very active in our school system. I didn't know about that. We should know. So celebrating those things that are going on, I think that's significant. Because the programs are already in place and they're doing really well. And the teachers who are leading that way are fantastic at what they do. When you look at the young lady who leads our CNA program, she's fantastic. When you look at our agriculture department, Mr. Murray, he's fantastic. And so you have these people who are experts in their field training up our kids so that the day they graduate, they are able to enter into that workforce and get a high-paying job. It's fantastic. Let's celebrate that, and let's make it okay that a four-year college isn't for everybody. It's not for everybody, and let's celebrate that they have a plan that when they graduate, they are going to go enter into the workforce and be a meaningful and contributing member of our society. That should be celebrated equally as somebody who chooses a four-year degree. So that's how I would improve it, is simply by celebrating a little bit and highlighting those kids that are also making those choices.
Mr. Turner, you get the first crack at the 7th question. When you are faced with a conflict between public opinion and county staff actions and recommendations, what options and methods are available to you to reconcile the differences? How will you manage this before you make your decision?
Again, this goes along with the communication process. I didn't tell you guys when I first started, but I actually have mainly a communication undergraduate degree and a business master's degree in business leadership. Most of this is involved in communication. You got to communicate with people. You have to talk. There has to be I like an eye-to-eye conversation. I would rather have that kind of conversation any day than a text or an email. I find texts are a little awkward, mainly because it takes me too long to do it. But I like an eye-to-eye conversation. And when something happens that I can't deal with, I want to pull you aside. I want you and I to have it. Now, I don't want it to be an open conversation. I don't want it to be in front of everyone, because I think it's degrading to harm somebody with your words. And you can do it. You can do it. As a matter of fact, if you want to see how to do it, do what we're doing. People will harm you with your words, with their words, because there's a lot of angry people that want things their way, and they will come after you, and it's just the way it is. Well, don't be that same person. Do not do that. Give the people respect. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you, period. And live that kind of lifestyle. And when you do that, then your actions, your methods will reconcile differences. I love this. I've got a good friend of mine that lived he doesn't live there. He's got a house on Cumberland Island. He actually lives in Maine. He is one of my best friends. I could call him right now and he'd come down here. But we differ on one item. I bet you know what it is. But he loves me, and I love him, and I care about him, and I care about his opinion because I listen to what he's got to say, and he listens to me. I think that listening is the only way to manage any kind of decision that you make where there are two differences. There's three things in the communication process: what I say, what you heard me say, and what I meant to say. Those three items have to be considered. That's why a lot of times when people talk to me, I want to hear them say back to me what I said. And believe me, I say some crazy things sometimes, especially from a pulpit. You can ask my pastor. He's still sitting right back there. He hasn't got up and left yet. I'm gone.
Public opinion is I'm sorry. I'm going to move on because I understand the question. Public opinion is a nebulous thing. There is no such thing as the public. The public is all of us, and we all disagree about many things. And so when someone has to make a decision at the county level, you have to do what's in the best interest of the most people and harms the fewest number of people. because that's the kind of compromise that is always necessary in order to get things done. When you cannot come to a point of being able to work it out, you have to make a decision, or else you become paralyzed. And so we hire county staff who we hope are good at their job, and that if they're properly managed, we'll make sure that we replace them if they're not good at their job, or we train them so they become good at their job. We also know that there are members of the public who can never be satisfied. We call them complainers. And so there are people who have bona fide problems that need to be dealt with. And those people the county has an obligation to deal with and find a solution if it's possible. But that's the key. Not everything is possible, and you can't make everybody happy. And so when you take a look at the conflict between public opinion, do you mean the public that's noisiest? Or you mean the people who are right? Or you mean the people that you can please? And so when we're looking at how we deal with this kind of conflict, you need to have wise men, not yes men. You need to have people who are sitting on the county commission who seek their own answers independently, who listen what both sides say, and then they verify. It's called trust, but verify. We've heard that before. We do not want to trust either side to be entirely accurate. We want to verify for ourselves that the best decision comes from our own knowledge and not from trusting either the loudest voices or becoming the fifth vote in a